cooking, planning, prepping, and preparing. It takes time and energy, two things that are sometimes in short supply. Today we will cook a week of dinners with the focus being low energy and low active time spent in the kitchen. So if you are a busy mom or anyone just looking to still nourish your family but make the most of your time and energy, then please stick around. Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. I initially wanted to title this video 20-minute meals, but that just ended up being really unrealistic and I had to adjust my expectations. However, there are a lot of good time-saving tools and methods as well as recipes themselves in today's video. So I'm just going to take you along on a week in our life. It's very casual and I'm just going to cook and talk about what I'm cooking and why. So today is Monday. Today I'm starting out by helping out my tomorrow self by browning the meat that I need for today and tomorrow. So I have this 2-pound pack of ground turkey, and I've talked about price per ounce before. Sometimes if you pay attention to the price per ounce at your local store, you will find that your larger packages are a lower price per ounce. So yes, they are a higher upfront cost, but if you were to buy 2 1-pound packages as opposed to 1 2-pound package, you're going to be spending more money for those smaller packages. So I went ahead and bought this and decided to cook it all at once so that I would have dinner ready as far as the meat component for this week for 2 different meals. So for today's meal, we are making a delicious 1-pot hamburger helper recipe. All of the recipes from today's video will be linked down below, but you can find a myriad of different versions of hamburger helper that you make from scratch. This one is what was called a lightened up version, so it's still good, but it's not as heavy, not as rich. So again, I will link that down below. Anytime that I am cooking any sort of meat, I usually will be adding diced onion and some garlic and salt and pepper, and then that way the meat is nicely seasoned for whatever I need it for. So I am just putting this in my colander lined with paper towels. This was sort of a messy process. I would normally do this on a plate lined with paper towels, but I decided to do this way since I had such a large amount of protein that I was trying to drain the excess fat off of. You will notice that the dinners in today's video are still largely homemade. They're not so much about already prepared items such as taking a bag of meatballs out of the freezer and then, dumping them in a crock pot with the sauce. There's absolutely nothing wrong with those types of meals, and I do make those types of meals, but I wanted to choose some meals that were still made from scratch, but were, again, low time, low energy, low effort. As I am in my 3rd trimester, that is really important to me. If I can minimize the time that I am standing in the kitchen and I can have something cooking for me while I have my feet up on the couch, then that's absolutely going to take priority for me. I once heard a really good episode of the Lazy Genius podcast, and I'll see if I can find it and link it below. But she talked about the different cooking priorities. And she talked about how for some people, the time will be more important. For some people, saving money will be more important. She talked about energy. She also talked about, I think, using minimal dishes so that you have less cleanup. There are a lot of different things that you can prioritize when cooking, but oftentimes you can't prioritize all of them equally. This is with most things in life. So again, for this video, I'm prioritizing low energy and low time. So we've made our sauce, we've put milk in here, we've put broth in here, we've put spices, and I've added my noodles. This is such a nice meal because it is 1 pot, so you don't have to cook those noodles in a separate dish and then have that extra energy and time spent both cooking and cleaning. So I'm adding this cheese in. That's the last thing that you do. And then you stir it in just to get it all melted. Does that not just look like a big, warm, cheesy hug? This really was so delicious. It heats up really well. That's Monday. All right, Tuesday, we're going to go ahead and jump straight to eating out. I usually save 1 dinner a week for eating out or takeout and bringing it home. This particular night, the boys were doing something, and so it was just my daughter and I at home. And I said, you know what? This feels like a good time to use our eating out or our takeout. So if it's in your budget, I would eat out, every now and then. Treat yourself and let somebody else prepare that food for you. All right, as we step into Wednesday, we are taking that ground beef or ground turkey that I made on Monday, and I'm reheating it. So it's perfect in this container. It's got my onions and my garlic all finely chopped in there to add some flavor, and I'm just bringing it back to life in the pan. Today we are making egg roll in a bowl. I've made this before. I've shown this before. So I am, alongside of the egg roll in a bowl, I'm making jasmine rice. I wanted to do this so that I could bulk up the meal and also so I could give the kids another option, because egg roll in a bowl is not really their favorite option. So I make this the same way every time. I start with 2 cups of jasmine rice. I do rinse my rice, and then I add equal parts rice and water. So 2 cups of rice rinsed, 2 cups of water, and then I do a tablespoon of oil. I usually do coconut oil, but I've also found that olive oil works beautifully. And then I do a teaspoon of salt. And then after that, I just kind of stir everything and make sure that it's coated. I put the lid on and make sure that it is set to seal. And I cook it on high pressure for 5 minutes and then let it natural release pressure for 10 minutes. I don't have to watch it. I don't have to monitor it. I don't have to pull it off a burner. It's just such a nice hands-off option. So I'm saving time with going in with this bagged coleslaw as opposed to having to shred my own cabbage and carrots. So I'm always amazed whenever I put this in the pan at how much it is, but it does cook down. So anything like this, collards, spinach, you know that if you apply some heat to it and a little bit of liquid, it's going to reduce down. So you'll see that this will happen with this dish. It absolutely will not be as overflowing as it is right now. This is another one of those one-pot meals, and I could easily, if it would have saved me time and felt better energy-wise, I could have just waited and cooked that turkey today. But like I said, since I was already cooking it on Monday, I just decided to go ahead and cook all of it. But again, such an easy one-pot meal. The rice comes out delicious and fluffy every time. It doesn't stick very much to the bottom of the Instant Pot, so that's not an issue. And here it is all in the bowl together. I really love this dish. And again, this is another one that reheats well, so you can make this and then maybe have lunch for tomorrow or the next few days. On this day, we are revisiting the idea of batch cooking meat. This is something that I really want to incorporate more into my week-to-week, day-to-day life in the kitchen, because it really is so simple. So the crock pot, again, as we know, is another hands-off cooking device, but there are a lot of things that you can do with it. There is a skinny taste recipe for cooking shredded chicken. And so I'm taking a large pack of chicken here and just measuring out the weight that I need. And instead of just cooking it in water, this recipe, it's very simple. All it is salt and pepper and then bay leaves and celery and maybe a little bit of parsley. And then you cover it with broth. I will say I have done it with water instead of broth, and honestly it works out just the same because the chicken sort of creates its own broth. So that also makes it a little bit cheaper. But this is such a delicious thing to do and so hands-off. And then for the rest of the week, you have chicken prepared for salads, for salsa chicken, for chicken salad, for filling burritos, or like we're going to do today, for filling chimichangas. So it is the afternoon now, and I am prepping this Spanish rice. I will link this video down below. This is something I learned to make early in our marriage, and it is really similar to the rice that you get at Mexican restaurants. I am substituting jasmine rice instead of the instant brown rice because I think the texture makes it a little closer to what you would get at a Mexican restaurant. But while I'm getting that going, I was also letting my chicken cool so that I could then shred it up. I told you this chicken was good, and sometimes little or big hands will come in and steal some of it. But one thing that I learned this time was that it actually saves you time to not trim the chicken before doing this. So you saw I took the chicken straight out of the package and I put it into the crock pot. there's so much less waste this way and so much less time because you can pull through with clean hands. Those are the best kitchen tools. And you can pick out the little bits that maybe you don't want in there, but there's so much less of it. If you're trimming that chicken beforehand, you know that you are having to trim away some good meat to go along with the things that you don't want. So anyway, that's just a little tip that I learned was if you're going to cook something in the crock pot, trim it after the fact. And of course, that extra fat also helps to flavor your chicken. So to the chicken, I am adding salsa. I'm adding some spices like cumin, chili powder, and oregano. And then I'm also adding shredded cheese. Again, I totally could have saved on time here and bought pre-shredded cheese, but it's kind of just become standard practice around here that we buy a block of cheese. It goes bad far less quickly, and then I can use it for whatever I want, whether it's slicing cheese for something or shredding it. You guys know, if you've been around my channel, that we have little hands in the kitchen on a regular basis. It's not every day, but it is every week. So the more that they do it, the better they are at it, and the more patience I have. So it really is a fun part of cooking, and I really enjoy having them in here with me. So you take the chimichangas and you brush them with butter, and then you bake them in the oven. And while that's going, I'm taking the rest of my chicken and I'm turning it into delicious chicken salad. So my rice is just cooking away. You can see there the vegetables sort of float up to the top in the broth. It's such an easy rice recipe, and it makes, oh my goodness, it makes such a huge amount. So the chimichangas are cooking away, and there's my chicken salad. I have a whole video of cooking with me making this chicken salad recipe, and so I will link that down below. I think it's a really good chicken salad. I've mentioned this before, but when you're cooking at home, don't neglect plating your recipe. Don't neglect plating your meal and making it something that is noteworthy presentation. I think there's so much to we eat with our eyes. There's so much truth to that. And plating up your food can really help you and your family make the most of eating at home. So here's our last meal. This is actually in the morning. And again, I thought, how can I help myself at dinner? And so I'm going to go ahead and prep bacon because we are having breakfast for dinner, but we're also eating breakfast this morning and I wanted some extra protein. So I am going to cook bacon with my favorite method of cooking bacon, which is in the oven. I line a baking sheet with parchment paper and put it in a cold oven. And then we will set the temperature to 400 degrees and cook it for, 15 to 22 minutes until it is the desired doneness. You know, everybody has their certain way that they want bacon, but there's no flipping, there's no manning it on the stove, there's no spitting of grease. This is my favorite hands-off way, especially to cook bacon. So I prepped that with some eggs, and I had a little bit of that for breakfast, but most of what you see here will be saved for our breakfast for dinner. So it is now the evening time, and I am making sheet pan pancakes. This is another Skinny Taste recipe. I got this one from my sister. It does call for buttermilk, which I did not actually have, but I'm sort of making my own buttermilk substitute. You probably know this tip, but if you combine lemon juice and milk and allow it to sit there and kind of curdle a little bit, it will make its own buttermilk. So you can see there in the back, that is happening while I'm measuring my dry and wet ingredients. I know this is not the proper way to measure flour. Nobody has ever complained, and everything has turned out just fine. So here we have little hands again, and we are working on making these sheet pan pancakes. Again, it would have been much easier if I had used box pancake mix, but one thing that is kind of important to me that I didn't mention in this video is cooking with things that we already have. So the less pre-made things I buy, the less I have to store, and I just already have those ingredients. So as long as I have the time, I would rather do something like this as opposed to storing all these different little mixes and individually made things, if that makes sense. So Again, that doesn't have to be important to everybody, and in some seasons of life, it's not important to me either. But as a general rule, that's kind of how our kitchen works. That's usually important to me in our kitchen. So you just add those wet ingredients to the dry ones. You don't stir too much because you don't want to overmix the pancakes. And then you pour them onto a sheet pan that's lined with parchment paper. Now, I forgot to line my parchment paper, and I thought for sure they were going to stick. And I was pleasantly surprised that they did not. I let them cool a little bit and they came out so clean. You can see we added chocolate chips to ours. The original recipe is like a lemon blueberry, which sounded so good to me. And I would like to try this again and make it with that variation. But of course, you could add any little toppings you wanted to. All right, you guys. So that is what we ate this week, with me trying to limit my time in the kitchen and preserve my energy. These pancakes turned out so delicious, and they also worked really well to heat up the next day as leftovers. Thanks for watching, everyone. Again, I will link everything down below. Please like and subscribe for more videos just like this one.